Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered more than 134,000 new conscripts into the Russian army. The Russian Defense Ministry says this has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. For more, David Martin joins us now from the Pentagon. David is CBS News' national security correspondent. David, thanks for being here. Moscow had discussed a possible de-escalation of military strikes earlier this week. So how does what they've said match up with what they're doing now? And what are you hearing about the latest Russian troop movements?
Well, in the last 2 days, Russia has flown more than 300 airstrikes on each of those 2 days, and that's a high for Russia. So they certainly are not scaling back their air campaign against Ukraine's cities. On the ground, their troops have pulled back from positions around Kyiv. They have clearly abandoned their attempt to take Kyiv from the ground. The Ukrainians fought them to a standstill, and now the Ukrainians are harassing them as they pull out. And a lot of these strikes are meant to cover that retreat. Now, those Russian soldiers are not going home. They're going back to Belarus. They're going to refit, and then they're most likely going to move all the way around to the eastern part of the country, the area that's known as the Donbass, and that is about to become the main effort for the Russian military attempt to exert some sort of control over Ukraine. But you would have to say right now that Russia lost the first really important battle of this war, which was the battle for Kyiv.
As this military offensive in Ukraine grinds on, David, President Zelenskyy of Ukraine says his country's defense against the Russians is at a, quote, turning point. What do you make of that assertion?
I think it's literally true. The war, the center of the war is turning from Kyiv out to the east in this region called the Donbass. And this is a dangerous moment for Ukraine, because it's going to have to move some of its forces out there. If the Russians are going to reinforce theirs, then the Ukrainians have to reinforce their forces. That means they have to move from Kyiv a couple hundred miles across the country. And it's not, of course, just a matter of putting soldiers on trains. You have to move all of their equipment and all the ammo they would need with them. And in the past weeks, there have been strikes which at first glance didn't make a lot of sense because they were far away from the battlefield. Russian airstrikes against places like Lviv out there near the Polish border. But those were strikes against fuel depots. They were strikes against repair depots, and all of the things that you need to support the logistics of moving an army across half your country in order to confront the Russians in Donbass. So this is a dangerous moment for Ukraine, particularly in the battle for the city of Mariupol. We've all seen the pictures of the destruction that's going on in Mariupol, but it looks like Russia is just slowly going to pulverize that city until they take it. And if they take it, that will free up that many more Russian forces to push out of the east against the Ukrainian army, and they could end up cutting off a large slice of the Ukrainian military.
David, you've heard these reports of fighters from the so-called Wagner Group fighting alongside Russian forces. What do you know about that group and what they're up to?
Well, they're mercenaries, and that means they are more experienced, better trained than conscripts. So 1,000 members of the Wagner Group is probably a more potent fighting force than 1,000 Russian conscript troops. But these guys are not invincible. They were in Syria fighting on the side of the Assad regime. And at one point, this is several years ago now, they actually attacked an American base in northeastern Syria. And the U.S. called in artillery and airstrikes and killed probably 200, 250 of them.
David Martin, thank you so much for your reporting. We'll see you soon.
Sure.